Hello, I'm Eric Moorhead, second generation family owner of Presque Wine Cellars, where Pennsylvania wine began and home of Pennsylvania's finest wines, if I do say so myself. We opened in 1964, before any other winery operating in Pennsylvania today, and we've been a leader in the industry ever since. Our winery and vineyards are in northeast Pennsylvania, in Erie County on the southern shore of Lake Erie, in the beautiful Lake Erie American Viticultural Area, or AVA. Presque and other Pennsylvania wineries are making some remarkable wines from Pennsylvania-grown grapes, although in our own state and frankly even in our own county, our wines are often misunderstood and underappreciated for just how good they really are. So we're thrilled to be working with a great team at Pennsylvania Libations to introduce and promote our wines to visitors, and especially to our fellow Pennsylvanians, to show that you can be Pennsylvania proud and still drink great wine worth getting to know. Wine you can truly be proud of. So I'd like to take a few minutes to tell you about the Lake Erie AVA, a little bit about the history of our winery, and talk about some of our wines as well. So now a little bit about why our Lake Erie AVA works. The Lake Erie AVA exists because of a happy and unique confluence of geography, weather, and topography. Lake Erie is a huge, massive body of water that absorbs heat all summer long. And in the fall, it creates warm breezes that circulate in that thin band between the lake shore and the first ridge south of the lake, keeping the temperatures on that side of the ridge much warmer than those on over the ridge. Also, where our vineyards are, the land slopes up from the lake to that first ridge with an elevation change of about 1,000 feet over 3 miles. So the combination of the warm breezes circulating in that band prevent and delay the onset of typical frost. Our first frost isn't typically until early to mid-November. And then the sloping land helps any cold air that might present itself to slide off down toward the lake. So you don't get standing pockets of cold air, which helps protect the fruit against injury due to cold pockets. The lake protects us in the winter as well, keeping temperatures in our area usually warmer than those on the other side of the ridge. And the other thing the lake gives us are the famous lake effect snows. Now, we get on average about 10 feet of snow a year. In fact, not so long ago in our 2017 Christmas Snowmageddon episode, we got 7 feet of snow in 3 days, right around Christmas time. Now, snow usually brings to mind thoughts of winter cold and that sort of thing, but in fact, the snow is a blanket that keeps anything below it at around 32 degrees, which is not a problem at all for the grapes. And that doesn't matter how cold the air temperature outside might be. So the snow is really a blessing and helps us through, often through any cold snaps that we get. Then in springtime, the cold waters of the lake help keep things cooler and delay the onset of budding until usually into May, which is after the typical last frost date of the year. So that protects the grapes and the fruit from frost injury. So the net result of all this is that we have about almost a 200-day frost-free growing season, which is unique for an area this far north. By comparison, Finger Lakes, it's about 15 days longer than, or actually 25 days longer than typical growing season in the Finger Lakes or in the Columbia Valley in Washington State. and it's about 10 days longer than the typical growing season in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. And it's actually only about 15 days shorter than a typical growing season in the high plains of Texas, way down south. So our area, because of this unique combination of an interplay with the lake and our topography, creates this fascinating and unique microclimate that allows us to grow grapes and make these great wines. There's one more key ingredient that makes the Lake Erie AVA tick, and that's timing. There are hard-hearted wags that call our area dreary Erie, and they do so for a reason. We're certainly not the warmth and sunshine capital of the world, and there are a lot of cloudy and wet days throughout the course of the year, which is kind of counterintuitive for grape growing. But the key is we get exactly what we need when we need it. Late July through early October are our sunniest, driest times of the year, and that is just when the grapes are ripening. That precious sunshine that we do get happens during that time, and that combined with the nice warm breezes that we talked about earlier keep the grapes dry and healthy and protect them against rot and disease, as well as letting the grapes ripen. So that combination, that timing, is perfect for the grapes to develop their flavors and sugars, and is key, combined with the effects of the lake, for making our area work and produce some great grapes and great wines. So now a little bit about our winery's history. Owing to the unique Lake Erie microclimate, our area along the southern lake shore has been an area of commercial fruit growing, cherries, peaches, berries, and especially grapes, since the 19th century. The Moorhead family has been growing grapes on our farm since the 1880s. In fact, there's a still producing vineyard on our farm that was planted in 1897 when William McKinley was president. As an aside, McKinley went to Alliance College just down the road a little bit in Meadville, at least until he got kicked out. The vineyard was also planted before the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk, and before Henry Ford took his first Model T for a drive. So my father, Douglas Moorhead, who founded Presque, is also often called the father of the Pennsylvania wine industry. During his military service in Germany in the 50s, he got a chance to see firsthand the possibilities for growing cool climate wine grapes, and that inspired him to try to bring that home and plant wine grapes in Pennsylvania, which he thought would be certainly more interesting and hopefully more profitable than the traditional table grapes and juice grapes that were grown. Our area also, in case you were unaware, is one of the centers of production for the Welch's grape juice, and a huge amount of the grape acreage that we have is Concords and Niagaras for those products. Doug experimented with over 200 varieties of grapes, and he collaborated with other Eastern grape pioneers like Dr. Constantine Frank and Philip Wagner, trying to find and identify varietals that would thrive and succeed in our area. I have fond memories of tagging along with my dad on those visits when I was 4 and 5 years old. But there was one big problem, and that was that Pennsylvania was not a very progressive state for alcohol sales. And at that time, the only place that wine could be sold was in the state-owned liquor stores that were run by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. And at that time, Pennsylvania wines, which were then unknown and honestly not very good yet, would have to compete head-to-head against wines from California, from France, from Italy. And you can imagine that was pretty much a non-starter. So it really wasn't viable to be a Pennsylvania winery. When we opened in 1964, we actually opened as a winemaking supplies company, and also provided fresh grapes and juice to people that wanted to make wine. We made wine and we offered it to our customers, but we didn't sell it. It was really made as an example of what could be done with the grapes and juice that we provided for sale. So we were one of the only sources of fresh grapes and fresh wine grape juice east of the Mississippi. And I remember as a kid seeing vehicles with license plates from as far away as Wisconsin, Tennessee, Carolinas, and Maine, queued up at the winery in the fall to get their supplies and grapes. So supplies has remained an important part of our business to this day, but Doug was always first and foremost about wine, and he just had to figure out a way to solve that wine marketing problem. And the answer was to try and find a way for a Pennsylvania winery to produce its product and be able to sell it outside of the state source system, so it wouldn't have to compete against the rest of the world, at least not the start. So Doug teamed up with local farmers, Pennsylvania wine enthusiasts, and certainly not least with some very supportive and influential local politicians to work together to fight for passage of the legislation ultimately passed in 1968, although almost didn't pass, which is an interesting story for another time. But that legislation enabled wineries to produce and then to sell the product that they produced on their own premises. And that ability is what has laid the foundation for the entire Pennsylvania wine industry. Presque was one of the first 2 licensed wineries under that legislation. The licenses were handed out alphabetically, so Presque actually is the younger twin and has the second oldest license of wineries under that law. But of course we were there for a long time before that and consider ourselves to be Pennsylvania's pioneer winery for sure. So from 2 wineries back in 1969, the Pennsylvania industry has grown to just over 300 wineries today. And Doug and Presque have worked very closely with growers and with other wineries in our area to collaboratively work to improve the quality of the grapes grown and the quality of the wines made, to the point where today some of the best of Pennsylvania wineries are making wines that are competing toe-to-toe with wineries from across the United States, including California, in Oregon and Washington, and around the world. So Pennsylvania has come a long, long way, and Presque has been at the center of things from the beginning until now, and we will continue to be there. The Pennsylvania wine industry is producing some great wines, some remarkable wines that are certainly worth getting to know, and Presque is where it all began. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about our wines. Presque from the start has been committed to producing the highest quality wines possible from locally and regionally grown fruit. We are committed to taking the care that's needed in the cellar to make all of our wines, be they our premium Bordeaux style dry reds, our French and Germanic style dry whites, our signature ice style dessert wines, our easy drinking semi-dry wines, and our sweet wines made from local native Lake Erie grapes, to make those wines, each of them, as good as they can be. We know, first and foremost, that great wine can't happen without great grapes. So everything starts in the vineyard. We have close, cooperative, and long-term relationships with all of our growers, and we work only with the very best local and regional growers who have demonstrated a dedication to their craft and to best vineyard practices, and who are willing to follow and meet our quality requirements. Our winemaker works very closely and communicates with our growers throughout the year, and especially in the times leading up to harvest, keeping an eye on how things are going in the vineyard and making sure that our grapes are harvested at optimum time, at optimum condition. That commitment to collaborative work with our growers to improve the quality of the grapes has led to a steady and marked improvement in the quality of the wines over the years, to the point where Presque wines now routinely and consistently win top medals in competitions across the country, holding our own against wines from California, Washington, Oregon, and elsewhere. As an example, at a recent Finger Lakes International Wine Competition, one of the largest and most prestigious wine competitions in the U.S., Presque entered 17 wines and won 17 medals. And that 17 medals was more than all but 8 of the 621 wineries from 39 states of the U.S., including California, and 16 international countries, including Italy, Spain, Australia, and Argentina. So Presque won more medals than all but 8 of the 641 wineries that entered wines. That's pretty impressive. Our Cabernet Franc, our Dornfelder, our Riesling, and our Eskimo Kisses Ice Style Dessert Wine have all won gold medals, double gold in fact, at the prestigious San Francisco Chronicle Wine Competition. So very much holding our own against wines from California and other top wine producing states. Our Cabernet Franc, Dornfelder, and Traminette have recently won Best in Category at statewide Pennsylvania wine competitions, and our wines routinely find themselves among the top 10 selected wines in the PA Top 10 Wines competition that is put on by Pennsylvania Wine Excellence. Presque wines are truly able to compete and hold our own against some of the best wines from around the country, and we're very proud of that and pleased at what has happened. So we're really excited about now working with Pennsylvania Libations to introduce our wines and share our wines with more Pennsylvanians, and show that remarkable world-class wines are being made in an unexpected place, our own backyard. So we look forward to sharing our wines with you. Now I'd like to turn things over to our executive winemaker, Bob Green, who is going to tell you a little bit about our winemaking values and processes, and also tell you some about our favorite Presque wines.